Famed Greek philosopher Aristotle posited that there are four types of causes for anything in the world. The material, meaning the physical or literal circumstances of a thing, bricks to a house, letters to a word, thoughts to a feeling. The formal, meaning the what of the issue, the literal answer of the cause. The efficient, meaning where change comes from, the compelling event or circumstance of a thing. And the final, what it does to the thing or the circumstance, the purpose.
These four causes would come to be known as a summation of Aristotle's theory of causality, and a literal backbone to one of society's biggest distortions in belief systems that is at best meaningless and at worst pretty harmful. They say the phrase everything happens for a reason, like you're supposed to experience everything you do in order to reach some sort of divine grand finale or amazing final place. Car accident, everything happens for a reason. Lost your job, everything happens for a reason. Went through a really terrible breakup, everything happens for a reason. Diagnosed with a terminal illness, everything happens. You gotta be kidding me. If you couldn't already tell, I am not a huge fan of that belief. It kind of feels like someone just telling you to get over it, you know what I mean? Like imagine you're walking to work, minding your business, listening to music in the morning, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a crazed psychopath comes out from around the corner and starts beating the absolute shit out of you. And while you're on the ground crying and screaming for help, someone drives by with their window down and yells, "Everything happens for a reason." Like, man, what the fuck is the reason? So I can don this new black eye and busted lip look that's all over the runways right now? Or are you telling me that I deserved to be jumped because I was just so damn walky and punchable? You can't really sit there and tell me that people face mass systemic injustice or war or famine or poverty for a reason. Like there's some sort of divine plan for them, or like they're just put here to suffer. Like that's the whole point. I don't believe it. But what you can tell me is that there's a lesson in everything. And I'd agree with you. Sound like the same thing? Let me explain. The origins of the phrase, everything happens for a reason, are pretty unclear, but it seems to be a mixture of Christianity and Aristotle's theory of causality that we talked about earlier. This isn't gonna get preachy or slimy or weird, so just bear with me for a second. I just want to provide some context. Proverbs 16:4 says, "The Lord made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble." And as I explained briefly at the beginning of this video, Aristotle had his own ideas of causality. Turns out the proverb is actually talking about morality, like reward and punishment. Different translations of the Bible explain this a little better to explain that this is talking about like everything has its end point. It's actually kind of the inverse of what it sounds like. So like hell was made for people that are bad, not bad people are made to go to hell. And even the concept of hell is debated amongst theologians and the other people. I don't know anything. Similarly, the causes that Aristotle talks about are in relation to like science and stuff, not like fate and divinity. They're about like, you know, you want to find the cure to a disease, you got to figure out what caused it. Or like if there's ecological endangerment, you got to find the root of the endangerment. It's about finding the root of a thing to then solve the thing. Now, I do actually think Aristotle is onto something here in the psychological way, but like in a different sense. So let me explain. Nathaniel Drew on his second channel made a video about this in kind of a different way, but you kind of watch in real time him understand and challenge the difference between the two phrases of everything happens for a reason and everything has a lesson. It's pretty cool to watch. In fact, it wasn't until a comment on that video mentioned the difference and that it's more that everything has a lesson that he changed the title of the video to reflect that idea. So he really like understood the change kind of as we watched him understand it. There was actually a comment that stuck out to me on this video that really like inspired me to want to make this video and delve deeper into the topic. It reads, "Hi Nathan, I like the way you think. I can relate to many of your thoughts on life, but I grew up in a poor country, so I can never agree with the idea that everything happens for a reason. This is a very romantic and perhaps naive way of seeing life. There's a huge amount of things and shit that happen outside of our control, especially traumas." And then another comment, "Unfortunately, sometimes it's just impossible to fully relate, especially when you live next to Russia. 3 days ago, in my native city of Lviv, almost an entire family died. 3 daughters, 21, 18, and 7 years old, and their mother due to heavy Russian shelling. Only the father survived due to the unimaginable consequences. Now, I can't even understand how he could remotely embrace amor fati. It seems impossible. I heard all those explosions and it makes me so scared that it could have been my family." Now, I'm not here to disparage Nathaniel or his romanticism. He has a really beautiful, artistic, and poetic way of viewing the world, and I really admire that about him. He's one of my favorite creators on the platform. I too see the world in a poetic and artistic way, but I'm more of like an Edgar Allan Poe or a Alfred Hitchcock, or or Kurt Vonnegut. He's definitely more of a Wes Anderson or a Robert Frost. Instead, I bring this up to highlight the salt in the wound kind of nature of the phrase everything happens for a reason. You really can't, or at least shouldn't, tell a trauma victim that they experienced what they did for a reason. It's like telling kids that they get cancer to fulfill their greater destiny or some shit, and it's really quite gross. But we can tell all of these people that there is a lesson to be learned. Now, I also think that there has to be some sort of tactful response to this as well, because it's really easy for that phrase to sound like you're telling people like, you gotta learn your lesson, and that's not even a little bit what I'm saying. What I am trying to say is that there's always something to pull out of a situation. And like, we do that ourselves. We decide what to learn from something. So it's not so much that we're gonna teach you a lesson, and it's more that like, there is something in this to take to use later down the road. So to illustrate my point, I'm gonna do what I do best, and I'm going to go on a long-winded deep dive onto all the nuance of the topic. Buckle up. Let's start simple and innocent so I can make some jokes, because up until this point, it's felt like I couldn't do that without being a gigantic monster person. Let's say you're in high school and you just took your midterms. You really wanna be a lawyer, so all of your grades matter, unlike some people I know. A weekend passes and you are super stressed. Did you do well? Will you pass? What are your parents gonna say? Are you gonna pass the bar exam when you're older? Are you gonna be dooming yourself to a life of frying oil and 37 cats? I'm not projecting, I swear. Monday morning comes, the bell rings, and you nervously hobble to class. You've barely eaten all weekend, and anxiety is shredding your stomach to pieces. One by one, your teacher hands back the graded tests. Time feels like it's going by at quarter speed. Why is your teacher so chatty this morning? After an excruciating 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes, you finally get your test back. You're sweating, you're shaking, you're nauseous, you do not want to turn it over. This test is the difference between being the best civil rights attorney that has ever lived and a life being a destitute pariah. It's not, you know it's not, and you know you're being a little crazy, but that's how it feels, and it's a very real feeling to you. You steel yourself, you swallow your pride, and you flip over that packet. Fuck. C+. Tears in your eyes, you excuse yourself to the bathroom. You break down as quietly as you can so nobody notices. You want to throw up. You do throw up. Well, I guess at least now you can go home instead of having to face your teacher. But should you? You're gonna have to face your parents. You're gonna have to tell them you got the worst grade of your entire school career. They're gonna kill you. Whatever, it can't get much worse than this, right? You go home. Your mom picks you up and asks you what happened.
Honey, what happened?
Choking back the rest of last night's bolognese, you take a minute to collect yourself, getting ready to tell your mom what happened, bracing yourself for the worst reaction possible.
I got a C+ on the midterm.
Your mom looks at you, puzzled. You kind of look back at her, also puzzled. Why isn't she reprimanding you?
Honey, it's okay. You got a 4.5 GPA. One bad grade is not going to ruin your chances of being a lawyer. It's fine, sweetheart. You'll be okay, I promise.
Oh yeah, your mom is really sweet and doesn't care what you do for a living. She goes on.
Listen, you're in AP classes. You're on track to be valedictorian. You know more about civil law than anybody I know. I promise you it's going to be okay. Okay?
You're starting to feel better. She's right. This is just one test. It'll barely make a dent in your GPA overall. And then...
This is just one little blip in the rest of your life. And besides, everything happens for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason.
You snap back into your misery. A reason? What reason could there be for this? So you're known as the paralegal that got a C+ on their English midterm? To give you even worse grade anxiety and destroy your academic confidence forever? To butterfly affect your life into being a line cook? You hate cooking. And there it is. The rest of last night's bolognese all over the car. So, like I've said a few times now, everything happens for a reason kind of implies that there's some sort of divine ending and like everything's supposed to be positive at the end. Motherfucker, the end is the end. But there's a lesson in everything is a proactive way of looking at any situation and seeing how we can use it to our benefit down the road. It doesn't depend on grand design or some sort of major positive outcome at the end at all. But what it does do is it gives us the power to do what we want with the learnings and use them to our advantage down the road. The lesson may be that your city's getting more dangerous and you need to take a martial arts class and carry some pepper spray. It's not always a romantic and beautiful lesson. Sometimes it's just straight up pragmatic. Now, I want to be intentional with the language that I use in this video and especially in this bit because, like I said, we're really good at distorting things. When I say to our advantage, I mean it in the most neutral, literal sense I possibly can, not in the toxic positivity, hustle culture kind of way. I already did a video on that. You can go watch it. It'd be great. We can take any learning from any lesson that we learn from any situation and apply them to our lives later down the road in hopes that they help things get better or work out in our favor. In our student story a minute ago, maybe the lesson is letting go, learning how to accept our outcomes, and instead of becoming consumed by them, figuring out how to work with them, whether that be finding a resolution for them or leveraging them for the future. Maybe our C+ student could take the lesson, man, my intuition was right and I should listen to that more. I'm not that good at English and I wasn't studied up enough. I definitely should have put more attention on that one instead of history. Maybe moving forward, I can start making some sort of mock cases or write some sort of briefings. That way I can get a little bit better at my language skills. I don't know if that's what lawyers do. I don't know anything about lawyering. It's just, you know, is that what lawyers do? Mock cases and brief? I don't know. I make art. Or maybe the student can look at this and think, you know what? Maybe I just need to learn to be okay with being a little bit less than exceptional. I could use some time with my friends a little more. I'm sure going to the football game on Friday nights with my friends wouldn't kill my grades, and I think I can still be a pretty good lawyer with this stuff. Plus, all that anxiety was exhausting. I don't need to be dealing with that all the time. The lessons that we learn can be flexible, and they're up to us. We can pull them out on our own. Either one of these answers for our student removes the divine intervention or the grand plan for the whole thing, and it kind of gets rid of that existential crisis that it might give you. But instead, it arms them with the ability to take what they want out of it and move forward with a new thing, a new learning, a new way to approach future circumstances and situations. Or say you and your longtime partner had a really nasty breakup. Instead of saying everything happens for a reason, as if this breakup is supposed to divinely lead you to your life partner down the road, you can ask yourself, what can I take from this? What can I learn here? If you take your time to reflect over the relationship over all of its years, maybe you start to notice some behaviors or patterns or coincidences or things that you wouldn't have otherwise seen that spelled the end long before the end. Maybe your partner used your toothbrush head as a beard comb all the time and you hated it. Or maybe they were always a little bit rude and antagonistic to their mom and it always rubbed you the wrong way, but you weren't entirely sure why, until one day you realized it was because they had a desperate need for attention and harbored an undiscovered resentment for their parents because they didn't receive the praise and support that they desired growing up, and it transformed them into a low-key narcissist with no moral compass and gave them nothing but skills to become a manipulative maniac. I'll use myself as an example here. I dated a girl for a few years, like nearly 10 years ago, and we had a pretty gnarly extended breakup. And I'm not gonna get into it here, but I've learned a lot from it. I learned that I want someone that has a good relationship to their parents, is actively in or has been to therapy, that has a strong moral backbone, that is intellectual, and has more empathy than the MSc Arena can carry. I learned what manipulation tactics are. I learned what attachment styles are. I learned that I have an anxious attachment style. I learned that I am very prone to limerence and that I would rather pump my stomach full of Drano than ever feel that feeling again. Oh my God, please don't let it happen. Hell is in my own head. I also learned what are some subtle red flags to look for on the onset of a relationship in the first few dates. Like if she doesn't ask me any questions about myself, I'm good. She ain't getting a second date. That's a good sign that they're not interested in me. They're interested in getting something from me or filling a void with me. Bad at communicating, like can't text me back a couple times a day to small things. Sorry, but how am I supposed to trust that we can have a mature disagreement or have a productive conversation when you can't even respond to something innocuous and little once every 24 hours? Next, way too into celebrity culture. I'm good. I don't need to put another wealthier, more successful person's stress onto me. I already have enough stress for 10 people. It would have been really easy for me to take that whole experience and just internalize it as hopelessness and resentment. But instead, I decided to say, okay, what are the components of this that I can take and use further on in my life? A breakup is a more normal and less severe version of this type of thing, but it's a hard thing that most of us end up going through at some point in our life. However, to make my point a little better, let's talk about something extreme. This is gonna be heavy for a minute, but bear with me, I think it's important. Let's say a 10-year-old girl is diagnosed with leukemia. Leukemia accounts for 28% of all childhood cancer-related deaths, and it's not a good prognosis. In this case, it would be ridiculous and insensitive to tell anyone in this child's family that everything happens for a reason. My kid might die, and you want to tell me this is part of some grand design? Get fucked. And as the kid, what? They were just born to suffer and die? Instead, let's look at this as what can we learn from this, or what can we take from this? The answer for everyone involved will be different, and it's important that we present the idea to everyone as
tactfully as possible. Maybe it teaches the child that they are surrounded by people that love them and people that will do anything to keep them as safe as possible. And the child is able to combat the sickness better knowing that there's all of these people that would do anything that they possibly could to help. There is very real science that shows that having a positive mindset can really help your chances of survival. Maybe it teaches the mother of a child's strength and innocence, and it inspires her to try to incorporate some more of that in her own personal life. Maybe the father learns that despite all of its flaws, the medical system is actually made up of a bunch of people at the base level that really, really care about what they do and want to help people survive and heal and feel better. And it inspires him to go get his own health checked. Is this a good situation? Do these lessons make it any better? No, of course not. I can't even imagine the pain and fear that these people would be feeling right now. But each person is able to pull meaning from it and use that to their strength. This can help them instead of becoming a slave to circumstance and being overcome with cynicism and defeat. What you may find in adopting this mindset is that the answers are oftentimes, if not always, fundamental truths and cores to human life. In the leukemia example, there's strength, trust, hope, love, wonder, resilience, perspective. In my example, there was awareness, empathy, perception, and intuition. We're not always pulling these big dramatic lessons, and they may not even be new lessons. In fact, I'm a pretty big believer that we relearn the same lessons over and over again until they finally stick. I failed algebra in high school. I know a thing or two about relearning lessons. I remember watching this Isabel Page video where she was talking about a lesson that she learned over the winter. And if you're not familiar, Isabel Page lives in like a tiny cabin house that she built in the middle of the mountains in Washington alone. Her husband lives like in another one kind of on the same property, but generally speaking, she's alone all the time and she really struggles in the winter with her isolation. And she was just talking about like the lesson that she's learned experiencing that winter, even though it was like her third or fourth one. And there was a comment on that video of someone that was like annoyed by her monologue about the lesson that she learned. I can't find it, I'm too lazy to look now, but it was essentially saying that she's learning the same lessons over and over again and it's getting tiring being able to predict what she's gonna talk about year over year. I couldn't help but be rubbed the wrong way by this and feel like this person was out of touch. Like, you mean to tell me that you mean to tell me that you learn a lesson one time and it sticks with you? I've been a graphic designer for 15 years and I still get the measurements of a business card wrong all the time. I personally believe that it can take learning the same thing over and over again and oftentimes in different ways until we're able to be like, okay, holy shit, I get it, and we actually do something with it. You might learn that you can't digest an entire family-sized box of Cinnamon Life cereal or you're gonna have a nuclear catastrophe on your hands the next morning 10 times in a row before you decide to do something about it and change your behaviors. Hell, I've learned that in order to feel like I'm doing something with my life, I need to follow a very strict self-imposed schedule and check off boxes on a to-do list probably 50 times in a row, and I still struggle to do it because the couch just feels so good. These lessons might not be profound or forever life-altering. They might not even feel good to learn. They might, but they might not. That's not the point. In finding a purpose or lesson for a circumstance, we teach ourselves to maintain a positive and strong outlook in life. We arm ourselves with not only just the ability to cope, but to improve for the future in whatever small and meaningful way we can. Okay, cool, great. It's all fine and dandy to say I need to be a little bit more careful when you cause a car accident, but is there like any way to make that stick a little better? Like other than getting your 4th concussion? Actually, come to think of it, that might be a valid excuse. You may not want to have to learn the same lesson over and over again, and Lord knows we'd all like to keep the trauma to a minimum. We shouldn't have to hit a breaking point to adjust ourselves, and we should learn to arm ourselves early so that when these horrible and traumatic things do happen, we're well equipped enough with the tools that we need to make them significantly more bearable and easier to get through. Taking action early and setting up a habit now will prevent you from having to think too much with what limited energy you have in these moments. The book Learned Optimism by Martin Seligman, which reads like a doctoral thesis, it's very dense, teaches a lot of methods to help one adopt an optimistic default mode of thinking. It's a really great book. It has helped me tremendously, and I highly recommend reading it or at least doing some of the exercises at the end of it. It took me a very long time to read because, oh boy, is it dense, but it genuinely changed my life. I do want to make a video on it eventually, but for now, I'm going to teach you the one technique that really helped me change the way that I think about things and
make this kind of thing a little bit more automatic. You ever been told that really irritating advice to challenge negative thought distortions? Like, oh, instead of catastrophizing over that bad grade, think about it a different way. And then you just want to respond, thanks, Dick, and throw a tomato at your screen. And yes, I did almost essentially do exactly that a little bit earlier, but I'm not out of touch. Hold the hell on. When you're in the thick of something super shitty or difficult or stressful, thought isn't to look on the bright side. Your first thought is that you want to go to the forever sleep. I'm there like 3 times a week. I get it. The problem with the challenging negative thoughts advice is that it's too blanket and there's not really any like pragmatism to follow it. You're kind of just left with like the sense of like, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do with this?
Hey, you're a piece of shit.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Nuh-uh. If you just have defaulted to cynicism most of your life, catching yourself in that cynicism when you're in a difficult moment is a pretty steep uphill climb. Sisyphus ain't got shit on that. The same goes for trying to find lessons in things, which is essentially just like a less annoying way for me to say challenge negative thoughts. I know, I get it, but I also know that it's not that easy in the moment. How are you supposed to find a lesson when you lose your job and break your legs and your turtle dies? You don't want to find a lesson. You want to cry into a pint of ice cream and sleep for the next 2 weeks. Well, the answer is in being proactive and getting started early before any of those things can happen so that you arm yourself with the skills that you need so that when those things happen, you are defaulting to finding the lesson that can help you out of that situation. Confusing? It's learning time, kids. Grab your notebooks. In Learned Optimism, Seligman teaches the
ABCD
technique, approach thing. A for adversity, B for belief, C for consequence, and D for diffuse. For now, we're just gonna focus on A and D. I personally like to do this in my journal every night when I write about my thoughts and stuff, but you can do it however you want. I personally feel like writing it down physically helps me retain it better. There is like some science to show that. And I don't know, it just feels better to like get to, you know? There's no right or wrong way to do this. You could even carve it into the bones of your enemies if that's your prerogative, but I will say that you should do this every single night for as long as you possibly can, because getting in the habit will help you establish the thing better. I feel like I went to the gym and just like my brain or my body, my body instead of burning fat, burned my brain. I went to Target after my workout and I literally forgot what I was doing like 6 times. Just like stood there and was like, so you wouldn't believe how many takes this has taken. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is identify an adversity. Ideally something that happened to you that day, but it could also be something that's been bugging you lately and recently. It can be something little like someone pushed a shopping cart into your car, or it can be something big like someone died. It doesn't really matter, just the biggest adversity of your day. Sorry, was the someone died insensitive? I didn't mean, sorry if they did, oh boy. I'll do this with you. For me, my A is that I've been struggling with finances pretty bad lately. I have a client that has owed me money for such a long time that it's causing like a legitimate financial hardship for me, and it is on my mind all the time, and my stress is so bad that I feel like I'm losing weight from it. Then I'm skipping to D. Nice. Nope, diffuse. As this sounds, you're just gonna work with yourself to bring the pain of it down a little bit. Don't deny it. Don't say it's not happening. Don't be like, nope, this isn't happening at all, and I'm not even a little bit delusional. You need to acknowledge that it is indeed an actual issue. We're not here to like gaslight ourselves away from our problems. For me, it really is causing actual hardship, and the outcomes can be very different depending on what happens. But this is where we start to challenge it. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or what can I take from this experience? For me, I've learned that I need to diversify my income. If I only have one client at a time, I'm beholden to the mercy of them. Like, they could just not pay and then I'm screwed. However, being without work for a couple of months actually gave me time to rest and see friends and explore interests and do things that I otherwise wouldn't have been doing when I was overworked, a la this YouTube channel. So not only have I learned that I need to diversify my income, but I've also learned that I need to get better about incorporating things that bring me joy into my life. It led me to recognize how much I've been neglecting those parts of my life, because by the time I'm done working, I'm so exhausted, I have to just go lay on the couch. I have chronic fatigue syndrome, so like any little ounce of brain power I use throughout the day massively depletes the energy I have. Now the next thing is kind of my own thing. It's not in the book, but it fits into diffuse in a way. I'm going to look at this adversity and the things that I learned from it and figure out a way to incorporate those learnings pragmatically into my daily life. It's all rainbows and sunshine to be like, ah, dang, I'm broke, or man, I should see my friends more. I'm pretty lonely. But if it stops there, you might as well just eat your notebook. But if it stops there, you might as well just eat your notebook.
Well, all right.
So to come up with the plan, I legitimately take times to set steps for myself that I can tangibly take and track to get better. Me small brain know how to do things with no steps. Me need handhold. So back to my instance with the finances, I need to put emphasis on finding other streams of revenue and other clients and things that can bolster me when stuff like this happens. And I also need to spend more time finding joy in my daily life. What I can do about this is spend time every week sending cold emails to businesses I'd like to work with. I can reach out to past clients systematically and see if they need additional help. I can make a to-do list for myself and make sure that every single day, one thing on that list is something that might push me towards making more income from a different source. Even if it's something small and it's not immediate, like designing some icons to put in a pack to sell, or, taking pictures of textures to sell, or working on these YouTube videos. I really want to get monetized. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Then, for my issue of not doing enough stuff, I can set an input goal, which is a concept that I literally just came up with and probably heard somewhere else and forgot, but I'm gonna make another video on that someday. But in short, an input goal is a goal of a thing to do that you do and not an outcome that you're wanting to come from a thing that you're doing, if that makes sense. And that input goal should be something that brings me joy and fulfillment, even if it's small. I tend to struggle finding things to do, so maybe I'll even make a list of things that I know bring me fulfillment and that I like to do, so that if I'm feeling overwhelmed or exhausted, but I know I haven't hit my input goal of doing a thing that brings me fulfillment, I can just look through that list and pick one of those things, and I don't have to think about it anymore. It's just there and I do it. Stuff like that might be invite a friend to go for a walk, go watch the sunset at the park, get a snack, play a video game, go see a movie, cook a healthy meal, go to the gym, whatever. Yes, it feels a little ridiculous to play video games on a to-do list for the day that is otherwise made of things for work, but they bring me a lot of joy, and I tend to only play them when I'm already in a good mood. When I'm not feeling it, I tend to just kind of sit and scroll through YouTube and not do anything that makes me happy. If I'm stressed over money, having that as a must-do on my list will generally help me bring myself out of that mood and at least distract myself from what's going on for a little while. Distraction's fine in small doses. Plus it means I get to spend time with my sweet wife, Carlac. I love you so much. This can work for any situation pretty much at all. Even in a traumatic experience, you can do this. If you start now, you're setting the building blocks so that it's a lot easier for you to take the time to grab your notebook when you're freaking out and write, what can I learn from this, and strategize a plan to help you feel a little better. Building the habit makes it more automatic, so at the end of the day, when you're going through the worst thing you've ever gone through, you're still gonna do it because you're just used to doing it. And if you don't, it's okay, it's fine. You will do it eventually because you're in the habit of doing it. When I went through my hell trauma last year, which I have made a video about, but it's not entertaining and it's really sad. So let me know if you wanna see that. I just explain how my life fell apart over the course of 6 months. It's rough. I would often think, what am I learning here? Sometimes it was something small, like that my friends really love and care about me, and that told me that I should take the time to get over myself and call someone when I needed support, or text someone when I just needed some company. Or sometimes it was a harder pill to swallow, like that I had developed a legitimate neuroses and I needed to seek professional help and get medicated for it. Like I said, these learnings aren't always super positive and inspiring. Sometimes they kind of hurt, but they're important. It wasn't easy. No part of what I did was easy. Writing down these things every night was not easy at all. Everything about it was terrible. But by being able to grab some sort of lesson or learning from it, it helped me find ways to cope and get myself through it instead of just saying, this happened to me, it's unfair, and now I'm damaged by it forever. So, does everything happen for a reason? No, of course not. I don't personally believe in divinity or destiny or fate or any of that kind of thing. I think coincidences are very real and we have free will, and Neil deGrasse Tyson can fist fight me. To say everything happens for a reason oftentimes just adds a feeling of hopelessness to the situation, like it's completely out of your control and you just have to suffer through it. If that phrase helps you get through stuff, that's awesome. You wasted your time watching my video, but I appreciate your view. Please like and subscribe anyways. I do think that there's a lot of people in much worse situations that feel a lot of amnesty and resentment towards that phrase, and that's who this video is for. But like Aristotle suggests with the final cause, there is absolutely something to be taken out of everything. A purpose might be a bit of a stretch, but a lesson lesson or a learning? Absolutely. It's not to say that people in war-torn countries have to be taught a lesson. That's horrific. I'm not a bad person. It's to say that those people can, and oftentimes do, this is well documented, find some sort of lesson or strength in any given situation. You'll oftentimes see people in war zones or in horrific situations of violence or mass injustice, finding some sort of way to band together and build a community and find something to fight for. Oftentimes it's just survival, but oftentimes they find a deeper meaning. Like, this is about sticking together. This is about building community. This is about resistance. This is about mutual aid. It's very common. In fact, it's so common that a lot of this response is pretty automatic. You might even do it already in small doses. It's all in response to learning from and adapting to a situation in the most positive way you possibly can. Will it always help? No, definitely not. Sometimes a shitty outcome is a shitty outcome and there's nothing you can do about it. But it can absolutely make getting through that shitty situation feel a little bit easier. And even if that learning isn't profound, even if it's small and pragmatic, it can reinforce the things that we already knew and better strengthen our understanding of this human experience that we're all sharing. In my opinion, it's better to live in pursuit of strength and resilience to absolve yourself to circumstance or collapse under the weight of things out of your control. Again, I understand everything I'm saying here is easier said than done. This is all pretty hard, heady stuff. That's why I'm such a big proponent of being proactive and implementing some sort of behaviors or practices daily that make this stuff easier when the moment arises that it will be the most profoundly impactful for you. In my lowest of lows, being able to take away some sort of lesson from it really helped me get through them. Taking these learnings and using them as a way to kind of to take these implement them into my life in a way that is proactive and actually doing something for me has been tremendously helpful. I was able to take, the lesson of community and friendship and realize that I needed to spend more time with my friends and my family and get myself out of my own shit. Sometimes it's that simple. Everything happens for a reason, relinquishes your circumstances to something out of your control. It naively, or even recklessly optimistically, suggests a positive outcome for everything all the time. That just ain't it, sister. But there's a lesson in everything, arms you with the power to do something about your situations and circumstances. It gives you the power to respond and guide your life in the way that you want to, in whatever big or small way that means. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I very much appreciate your time. I'm aware that this was a little bit of a less silly video than the last two. I just felt this was a really important thing to talk about because it's been on my mind for a long time. And this is a mindset shift and a practice that has genuinely helped me tremendously throughout the years, and especially recently. I've been able to take my self-awareness and my understanding of my situations now with fresh eyes and change my behaviors and add techniques to my life that make things a little bit easier. And hopefully you can do the same thing for you. If you enjoyed this, I'd love to hear your comments and know what you think about this whole thing. I'd also love to know what other phrases and whatever cliche advices that you've heard that you think are unhelpful and maybe make you feel like you're broken because they don't work for you. One of my big inspirations is knowing that I don't particularly respond to a lot of common advice and feel like a lot of it's bullshit, or I just have a poor understanding of what it actually means. Therapy has been very helpful in understanding a lot of things and maybe changing my perspective on them and making them work for me. So I'd love to hear some things that you think are kind of thanks dick kind of expressions or philosophies and maybe break them down in a further video. I really, again, want this channel to be a place for discussion and community where we all can learn and grow and encourage empathy and just become better, more well-informed, happier people. If you haven't already, it would be very kind of you to like and subscribe to the channel to do the, buttons. I don't know how to end this one. Bye.